Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, we are now starting the Commission on Police Practices regular business meeting on November 7th, 2023. We're calling it to order at 4:36 p.m. Welcome to everyone here, all the commissioners, anyone watching in the public. Now, Ms. McFarland, can we do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Aguilar.
Here.
Commissioner Aziz. Commissioner Benitez. Commissioner Byer. First Vice Chair Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Canson. Second Vice Chair Case. Commissioner Griffin Jones. Commissioner Harvey. Commissioner Hilbert. Commissioner Molnat.
Here.
Commissioner Honore. Commissioner Justice.
Here.
Commissioner Larkin. Commissioner Lozana Diaz. Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner Murray Ramirez. Commissioner Rubio.
She's here. Commissioner Rubio. Oh, here.
Commissioner Sanchez. Chair Trent.
Here.
And Commissioner Villa de la Cruz. And that ends roll call.
Thank you, Ms. McFarland. Now, we will look at the approval of the meeting minutes. Do we have any public comment?
The public comment period for this item is now open. If you have already joined the Zoom webinar online or by phone, please raise your hand if you wish to speak per the instructions on the agenda. If you're in person, please come up to the podium when your name is called. In-person testimony will conclude before virtual testimony begins. Members of the public who wish to provide virtual testimony must enter the virtual queue by raising their hand before the queue closes. The queue will close when the last virtual speaker finishes speaking or 5 minutes after in-person testimony ends, whichever happens first. We have one speaker who wishes to speak virtually. Ms. Yavendetti, you should be able to speak now.
Hello, okay. Hello, my name is Kate Yavendetti. You know, I'm with Women Occupy San Diego and the National Lawyers Guild, and I just have two comments. One, they're both about the personnel issue, and I'm wondering why the discussion of the hiring process is in closed session, because in the transition committee, when we had these discussions for other positions, it was open. And number two,
that needs to go before that agenda item. So this is the agenda item specifically for the approval of the meeting minutes. So if we can have you hold on that item.
I understand, but I was told actually by you and others that I needed to talk about the executive director position before you went into closed session so that you could consider it.
Yes, and we will have comment right before we go into closed session. So yes, you are correct. So if you would like to take that opportunity, please just stand by. What was your second comment on?
Okay, so I will mute Ms. Yavendetti for now, and then we can come back for the comment on the agenda item. It doesn't appear that there are any other comments on the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Golub. Anything that people need to see changed on the, okay. Yes, Ms. Commissioner Malma.
Thank you.
That's all right. So under the roll call, it lists that Christina Griffin Jones was not there. But she did arrive late, I believe, and I don't know, was there anybody else who came to that meeting that arrived late that's on the absent list? Canson, I believe, arrived late. So we'll double check. Thank you.
And then, item 3, no, item 8, number 3, so the ad hoc committee reports under training committee. At the very end of the sentence in the parentheses, it says, to further address some already expressed concerns from the commission, that should be community. There's expressed concerns from the community there. And then in number 9, or Office of Commissioners on Police Practices, number 1, it says Chair Train, and that should say Chair Fran. That's all I have.
Thank you. And I have one more on item 3 that Commissioner Malmat referred to. There's a word that says will revise the training schedule looks. I think looks needs to be deleted. Any other changes?
We
proposed?
have interim executive director Mosley raised her hand.
Okay, Ms. Interim Executive Director.
Yes, this can wait till after. I just want to make sure that we can't hear on this end which commissioners were present during the roll call. So if we can state, or if Janae can state which commissioners are there, that would be great.
Great, let's get through this agenda item and then we will have her state that. Thank you. Any other changes on the meeting minutes? Thank you. So that was Commissioner Hilbert, and he said it was Commissioner Griffin Jones, Hanson, and Diaz who arrived late. So they should be counted as present. Thank you.
Chair Tran, very quickly, may I remind commissioners to use microphones when you speak for people via Zoom. Thank you.
Commissioner Honore.
Yes, I'm noticing in the minutes, we have a section called absent/excused. And I understand that the, at least interim bylaws identify that if folks are not excused but are absent, other activity, some other repercussions for that, is there?
Yes, we are going to be looking at that. We left it a little bit loose at this point because of a lot of the moving around and things like that of meetings and dates. So, but yes, we have talked about that as a cabinet. Thank you, Commissioner Honore. Anyone else?
Move for approval of the minutes with those changes.
Second, that was Commissioner Justice. Second, Commissioner Byer. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Ms. McFarland, will you please read those present?
So the following commissioners are present: Commissioner Aguilar, Benitez, Byer, Case, Harvey, Hilbert, Moman, Honore, Justice, Rubio, and Tran. My apologies, and Brown.
Thank you. All right, is there any non-public, non-agenda public comment? Ms. Golu.
So the public comment period is open. If you have already joined the Zoom webinar online or by phone, please raise your hand if you wish to speak for the instructions on the agenda. If you are in person, please come up to the podium when your name is called. In-person testimony will conclude before virtual testimony begins. Members of the public who wish to provide virtual testimony must enter the virtual queue by raising their hand before the queue closes. The queue will close when the last virtual speaker finishes speaking or 5 minutes after in-person testimony ends, whichever happens first. We have 2 members of the public who joined virtually for the non-agenda public comment. I believe Ms. Yavandetti wanted to speak, so I will allow Ms. Yavandetti to speak now. You will have 1 minute.
Thank you. Am I okay now? Okay. So I already raised the issue about why the hiring process and qualifications for the executive director is being heard in closed session as opposed to open session like it had been for all the other officers, including community engagement deputy executive director. But most importantly, I'm asking, and I'm sure you've already considered this, but I'm asking that when you put together the hiring process, you include the community as you did in the other officers, include a community panel. And if you want to know how that panel was constituted, I don't have time to tell you, but I'm sure that Doug and Brandon can tell you. But it's essential that the community be involved in this process. Thank you.
Ms. Yavandetti? We also have Andrea St. Julian who wishes to speak. Ms. St. Julian, you may now speak. You will have 1 minute.
Thank you. I want to second Kate Yavandetti's statements. There should be a community component to choosing a new executive director. I also want to urge the commission to know and understand that it really should move forward in nominating its own individual for the executive director position. You shouldn't be asking the city council what you should do. You shouldn't be relying on the city council to do the process. You should undertake the process yourself. Find who you feel is going to best serve you as a commission, and then nominate that person to the city council for the city council to appoint. In other words, the nomination process should belong to the commission, whereas the official appointment process does belong to the city council. Thank you.
Ms. Yavandetti? I send you an apology. No more public comments. So this concludes public comments on the agenda item number 5.
Thank you to Ms. Yavandetti and Ms. St. Julian, and thank you, Ms. Golub. Before we go into closed session, do we have any public comment on either hearing cases, reviewing cases, which we'll do in closed session, or any more about the process to hire the executive director? And Mr. Bennett would like to comment as far as what was brought up going to closed session. Mr. Bennett.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chair. And Ms. Yavandetti, if you still like to comment after my comments, please feel free to do so. Raise your hand. The commission is going to retreat to closed session if they accept my recommendation to discuss items that relate to public employee discipline as well as the executive director. I'll read those items in, and then I'd like to just make some comments. And then again, before we go into closed session, Ms. Yavandetti, if you'd like to speak further, please let us know. So the first recommended closed session is going to be regarding public employee discipline, dismissal, and or those cases that are privileged or protected from public disclosure under Government Code Section 54.957. That's to discuss complaints, charges, investigations, and discipline related to matters that are deemed confidential under Penal Code Sections 832.5 through 832.8. The second category of closed session that is recommended is in the box on the agenda, and that's regarding public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54.957 D1. The title of the position to be discussed is Executive Director. And I'd just like to explain this process to help. Any legislative committee or commission or body have the right to go into closed session to deal with issues that relate to employees, such as executive directors. The ordinance allows the commission to oversee and to work with the executive director. Closed session is authorized for this point and for this title and to perform the function, primarily because of the integrity related to the process. So I don't, for example, as a counsel, outside counsel to the commission, I am not sure exactly what's to be discussed in closed session under this item, except the process, which the Brown Act allows. The other thing I would say to anybody here, including commissioners, some commissioner may have interest in applying or having some consideration related to this position. If that is you as a commissioner, or if there are commissioners who are not here who might be interested, those commissioners should recuse themselves and not participate in this closed session item just to preserve the integrity related to the process. So by going into closed session on this item does not mean the public will be ultimately excluded from the process. As a matter of fact, without knowing anything, I would anticipate that the public would be involved. However, the commission still has the right to go into closed session to consider the appointment process, and I trust that that addresses any concerns in that regard.
Ms. Avendetti, did you have any comments on that?
Yes, I believe Ms. Avendetti has a comment.
Okay, 1 minute, please.
Ms. Avendetti, you should be able to speak now. You will have 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. It sounds to me like it's discretionary and not required, and I'm just concerned about the perception of the community. When you're just talking about things that had previously been done in open sessions in the transition committee, the hiring process, getting the search firm, putting together the qualifications and that sort of thing, which I think are of interest to the community, not talking about applicants or any of that sort of thing. So I know it's up to the CPP and you can decide what you want to do. I'm just raising it as an issue. And I know that everyone on this new CPP is very concerned about transparency and working with the community. So hopefully this won't happen again. Thank you.
Ms. Avendetti.
Thank you, Ms. Avendetti. Okay, if no other, we have Commissioner Honore.
Before Commissioner Honore speaks, Commissioner, you do not have to accept the recommendation and go into closed session. It's the commission's it's your prerogative. So the recommendation is that the closed session has been requested. If the commission chooses not to go into closed session to discuss the item, you don't have to accept the recommendation.
Commissioner Honore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to some degree, echo the concerns raised about the closed session. While I want to acknowledge and recognize that there is an urgency to make sure that we have in place, if not the executive director, a new interim executive director, as the process could take a while. At the same time, I think because of the shortness of the time frame between this day and the day we knew that we would need an interim or a new director, that to make this a closed session is premature. And that discussion, that conversation about how we go about getting our executive director, especially with this commission, which was brought about again through the public's desire to have this kind of transparency, should be considered. Secondarily, if there is a commissioner in this room who would be interested in being the executive director, to start with a closed session before we have an opportunity to assess and evaluate the process we're going to use seems again premature. Because that means if I wanted to be apply for the executive director position, I would be excluded at this point from this part of the discussion, which seems again a little premature, that I don't get to figure out what's going on before I get to make a decision about whether or not I want to run for the or apply for the position.
As Mr. Bennett said, if the commission does not want to go in closed session for that portion of it, you can make a motion, and if the commission votes it, we can do that in open session.
I know that the consideration of the executive director position that we are going to consider this evening in open session.
Okay, that was Commissioner Honore asking that, moving that the closed session for the executive director position personnel be an open session, and Commissioner Benitez seconded the motion. Any discussion? Okay, let's vote. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, that's okay. I think that from my perspective, what's on the agenda is unclear in terms of the depth of this discussion. I mean, I have an idea in my head of things that involving employment that should be in closed session and things that don't need to be in closed session. I'm unclear about what we're going to be discussing to be able to make that determination. So that's why I seconded the motion.
We are going to be discussing the process. We are not discussing specific personnel because we don't have any, considering we need a process first.
Thank you.
Commissioner Justice. All right, any more? All those in favor? Yes, Commissioner Malmat.
So, can you share why you thought it was important to be in closed session? Like,
This is the recommendation that came from the cabinet. It's not my recommendation per se. It's a recommendation that came from the cabinet as well. I believe the Personnel Ad Hoc Committee. So you have the right, you all have the right to go into closed session to figure out what this is all about, as well as to discuss, for example, what you might deem to be characteristics or something of the sort of a new executive director. I do not know what the subject of the closed session is per se. I know the subject of the closed session. I don't know what is to be discussed in closed session. You do have a right to have the discussion in closed session related to the appointment process under the Brown Act, if you choose to take it.
The chair of the Ad Hoc Personnel Committee will answer.
The intention of closed session today was only to discuss the process of, it's not talking about personnel. Was not talking about anyone who was interested in being a executive director. Reason we wanted to do closed session is not to advantage anyone may apply, letting them know what comes before their application process, and that is a ethical issue. And I think that if we're looking at it from that perspective, that we should not do that in open session, so that we have some ethical background in terms of the hiring process.
Your Honor,
Thank you for that information. And with respect to that information, I think what we are addressing is the concern of the community to actually have a voice. And if we can assure the community that they will have a voice in this process after this closed session, that we're not going to make any final decision, the community can come back. If that is an assurance that we can have as a commission and as community members, I'm willing to withdraw the motion.
Without expressing the totality of the process, I think that it would be remiss for us as a commission not to include the community in the hiring of the executive.
I'm not gonna say I fully understood what you just said, but I withdraw the motion. If the person who seconded is willing to withdraw the second, I will withdraw the motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Honore. Commissioner Benitez withdrew the second. Any other discussion? Then that motion is withdrawn. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Hilbert.
I'm going to say I'll still make the motion to make it public. I mean, we did it in the last time. I think it was important. We got a lot of feedback from the community. I think the community knowing what the process is, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We're not discussing candidates. I don't think we're really going into a lot of confidential details. I don't really see any reason to not have it be a public.
Okay, do we have a second to Commissioner Hilbert's? Commissioner Aguilar seconds the motion. Any more discussion? We do need to move along to get things done. So are we ready for a vote or any more discussion? All right, let's take a vote. We may need to do this. If you are in favor of the motion to do the personnel issue in public session, please raise your hand. Okay, that's,
hold them up for a while, please.
hold them up. Commissioner Malmont.
It will not raise ethical concerns if we do, right?
That's your decision to make as far as
Right.
Commissioner, okay, these are yeses. Commissioner Malmat, Rubio, Aguilar, Larkin, Benitez, no, sorry, it's hard to see in this room, I apologize. Fire, Hilbert, Justice, and Casson. Okay, all those opposed? Commissioner Harvey, Commissioner Honore, Commissioner Diaz, Commissioner Benitez, Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Case, and Commissioner Tran opposed. What's that final vote, Ms. McFarland? Anybody abstain? I'm sorry, say that one more time. Eight yeas and 7 nays. The motion has passed. We will discuss the personnel issue after our closed session where we review cases. Thank you. Just for the record, Commissioner Canson, Commissioner Larkin, and Commissioner Diaz are now present. Thank you, Ms. McFarland. All right, so we will go into closed session to discuss the cases. And when we come back, we will take out the personnel issue in open session. Thank you. Let's go to closed session, please.
You need to read before we go into the closed session.
Going recording, we will start the meeting again. Alina, give us the word, please.
It is recording now.
All right, we're calling the open session back to order. And Mr. Dwayne Bennett, our outside counsel, will report out from the closed session.
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioner. The Commission on Police Practices pursuant to Government Code Section 54-957 to discuss complaints and allegations that are protected from disclosure pursuant to Penal Code Section 832.5, 832.8, and Evidence Code Section 1040. The Commission provided direction. The Commission will be providing findings back to the department relative to those decisions made, but at this point in time, there is no report. Thank you. That was approved by report. And there was no closed session as to the second item that's on the closed session agenda, which was Government Code Section 54-957 B2, and that was the B1, and that was the appointment of the executive director. That matter was not discussed in closed session at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. So we are going to have an open discussion about public employee appointment for the executive director position. Is there any public comment on this item?
It does not look like there's any public comment.
Thank you. So we have 30 minutes to discuss this item. I now turn it over to the chair of the Ad Hoc Personnel Commission. Okay, Mr. First Vice Chair Brown.
Good evening again. Before reporting on this item, I want to first of all thank the committee, the Personnel Committee, for their commitment to the process. This was a committee activity. No individual was not heard in the process, and the committee unanimously approved the process. Our plan was each commissioner would speak tonight, but I'm going to take the privilege of doing all of the speaking, and then we will open this for questioning, and we will also call for a vote at the end of this by the commission if they wish to approve these recommendations. The process that the Personnel Committee developed was one in which the process will start with the Commission's Police Practices hiring a research firm to do a national search. The commission will have a conversation with this search firm and the commission's perspective on the qualifications about the commission's perspective on the qualifications of the executive director. The search firm will develop and distribute a brochure for distribution to the city's website, governmentjobs.com, Nicole, and other agencies. The search firm will complete an initial evaluation of candidates and provide a list. The search firm, with the commissioner's collaboration, will develop interview questions to be consistently asked of all individuals. The commission will identify a panel of individuals consisting of commissioners and community members to conduct the first round of interviews, with the search firm representatives providing technical support. Finalists will be recommended to the panel to a hiring committee of the Commission on Police Practices consisting of ad hoc personnel members and cabinet members. The hiring committee will conduct the final interviews and send the recommended candidate to the city council for approval. What this says is the commission will be making the selection and the city council will give the required by legal process the approval. Thank you very much.
Any questions? We are opening this up for discussion. Yes, Commissioner Rubio and then Commissioner Harvey.
Yes.
Yes.
This is Commissioner Rubio. I'd just like to ask, specifically, can y'all point out where exactly is the community going to be involved? And to what extent is their involvement within this process?
The recommendation from the panel was that the community will identify those individuals within the community to sit with commissioners, and remembering the fact that we as commissioners also represent the community. And so there will be a panel consisting of both commissioners and community members that will do the interview and evaluation of the recommended candidates.
Commissioner Harvey had a question. Yes.
And I was asking the same question, but I was also going to, is there a part for the community to play prior to the interview process? They may have some insight or questions in regards to some of the things we're to be looking for. I think there should be a point prior, can it be a point prior to the interview process for the community to take part?
I think what you're saying, and I agree, is can we add a point to this where the community takes part in the process? Is that what you're saying, Commissioner Harvey?
I would say a strong affirmative. I would say a strong affirmative to that.
Oh,
Commissioner Howland?
I haven't raised my hand yet. Commissioner Rubio? I think it's, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner. Sorry. Weird room, I'm sorry.
I guess three things that in regard to. Can you hear me? Is it on?
Yeah, now.
Okay, sorry. Regard to what the Commissioner Harvey said, in the past, we've had the committee, which included the community representatives, look at the recommendations and the resumes submitted by the search firm. And they could amend that if they so chose, so there was a candidate that didn't make the cut or whatever. And so that's what I would suggest doing. My question is, how will the three community members be chosen. I'm sorry. No number, okay. How will the community members be chosen? And then my third comment is, can we add, maybe not to the process or to the process, but add to the motion that the process should be done in an expedited fashion since we have an unanticipated vacancy.
Commissioner Honorary.
Just making sure community members know that we're not. I think we have some community members. who want to be in the
Oh,
audience.
yeah. Thank you. Again, can't see. Commissioner Hill.
It's, is the idea that we will be sending one candidate to the city council for approval?
That is to be determined.
Go ahead, keep going. Mr. Grant.
Commissioner Honorary, is there other questions? Okay,
Just a quick question.
And then
I'm just thinking about employment law, as I know you know well. Will there be some, in terms of conducting interviews with community members, will there be some training about the things that you do not ask in an employment interview because it creates legal liability?
part of the reason that we're dealing with we're recommending the search firm is there will be questions that are delineated for every candidate that meet a certain criteria, and every candidate will be asked exactly the same questions in exactly the same manner.
I see you, Commissioner Murphy, but
Look.
Mr. Bennett wants to answer this.
No, go ahead.
Commissioners, and if for members of the public, I would certainly assume, and HR typically plays a role in here, that the questions will be appropriate, consistent with California FEHA as well as Title VII.
Commissioner Larkin.
Um,
Commissioner Larkin.
Yeah, my question was goes along with how are the people chosen? How does the public know, and how can they get involved? What is the procedure for that?
Again, those things are going to be developed as we deal with the firm and with the commissioner's recommendations.
Do we perceive maybe there being an opportunity for maybe some candidates who make it into the later parts to be able to attend one of our meetings and meet and greet with members of the
I can't hear. I think she fell off.
I think she misunderstood and muted completely. There we go.
Yes, that as I understand it being presented tonight, is very generic. It's it's in an infancy stage. So we don't know, but to the extent that the process is there at some point in time, you would assume that whoever these candidates are that come through the process will be introduced somehow, but you have to have a process of integrity. I don't think any of that has been developed yet based upon what I understand. The other thing I have to say, commissioners, and this is something that, you know, for purposes, we're not in closed session and we're not going to be in closed session, but there are a couple of things that need to happen somehow with the city, and perhaps the cabinet knows in terms of what happens in the interim. There is no appointing authority. So when Ms. Mosley leaves, there is nobody who sits at point that authorizes or that signs documents that does any of this stuff. The city has to figure that out because there's going to be a vacancy in terms of that appointing authority. That's something that you perhaps need to discuss in closed session at the appropriate time.
We have, this was going to be a little bit part of our cabinet report, but we have already met with one council member who heads up the, council member Marnie Von Wilpert, who heads up the Public Safety Committee, and one of her staff members, and we'll be meeting with the council president tomorrow. The cabinet will, and part of our number one discussion is the replacement, and that's why instead of possibly getting an interim, we want it as legally defined, but we would like to expedite the process and just move right into getting an actual executive director. Because if we go through the process of finding an interim, it's just going to delay also finding actual executive director. So we are looking at how expedited that process can be within the legalities, within allowing the commission and the community to weigh in. So we are looking at that process, and we are working with the council to, as far as the city part of it and the HR part of it. Yes, ma'am.
Really appreciating you all's energy to do it that expedited, but also just wanting to lift up an executive director role is a very important one for especially an important group of us. So just wanting to balance being thorough is being quick,
And that's the integrity model that we've been talking about, making sure that this is done legally and expeditiously.
And we're not going to hire. We're not going to recommend hiring someone just to hire someone. Definitely not. It will be community supported, commission supported. So we'll go from there, but as expedited as possible within the process. Does that make sense? Okay.
And you as the commission are gonna have a lot to say about it.
Yeah, we would like to recommend that our community engagement coordinator make every effort to bring to the community to have an event, and at least one event in the community where the community can get ahead of this before we even put this out, before we begin the hiring process, before we look at for a search firm, that there can be at least one community event where we let the folks know we're looking for someone. What do you want? I mean, we represent the community in great part, but as we've seen and heard already, and why we're in open and not closed session for this issue, is the community has a very great interest in making sure that the community is ahead of this and not finding out about stuff after.
Ms. Golub, who's representing staff tonight, has noted that, and will speak to Ms. Obid. And I think what you said as far as the traits that the community wants to see in an executive director is an excellent idea.
Other questions? Other comments? Yes, Commissioner Mahmoud.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Walnut is my name. And my title. So I just am wondering, Mr. Bennett, when you talked about we don't have a point person, can we as a commission designate a current staff member as the point person to act in that regard, or what can we do?
They have, to a degree, for example, Ms. Condi will be working with the cabinet to get the agenda. Ms. Golub will be handling some of the office staff. So it has been delegated. One second. It has been delegated, and there will be some certain roles. And the cabinet will help when we can, as far as approving certain things that we have the authority to improve. Commissioner Honoré.
So I guess the critical question is, what will we not be able to do after our current interim executive director leaves and before we get our next interim or permanent director? What will we not be able to do? Because that's, I think, what the community is going to be asking. What are you not doing that you could be doing if you had what you needed?
Commissioner, I think Ms. Mosley should answer that, because she started wiping her head as you asked that question. Charmaine?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
The question was, what will the commission not be able to do once you leave? Or yes, I
I
mean,
think the question should be, what does the executive director role consist of, right? Going back to the responsibilities of the ED, what the interim ED has been responsible for, in addition, which is managing the day-to-day operations of the commission, as well as the being the administrative director of the department. Right now, we are currently undergoing this transition, getting a new office suite. There's a lot of work when it goes to that. The ED is also the appointing authority for the department that we have. It's signing off, it's budget, it's everything, it's overseeing everything. So I think narrowing down what my responsibilities are and outlining them, and then looking at the criteria for qualifications, I think that would be helpful as the commission is looking at how to move forward. The search process is a long process. You know, I know everybody's like, oh, we could try to do this fast, but it's a long process. It's cumbersome. The community engagement coordinator position was it took like a few months, but that's because we had started the DED position and we bifurcated that position. So we were able to move her position along, I think, in a matter of maybe 4 or 5 months. And that was for the community engagement coordinator. Nationwide, when you do executive director searches, they do take several months, even with an executive search firm. So these are some of the things to keep in mind moving forward, and having those discussions with council members and making the decision on how to operate temporarily for the staff, and then also for the commission.
That, I think the question that Commissioner Honore was saying was, when you leave, what will not be able to be done with the current staff? Will you delegate those duties before you leave? How will it operate? What will we not be able to do without a permanent executive director or even an interim executive director? Am I correct,
Right,
Commissioner?
in other words, what is it that you cannot delegate that no one's going to do between your tenure and the next person?
And it's not even a matter of delegating. So all of the staff, they have their responsibilities, but it's what is the responsibility of the ED? Like going line by line, what I have been working on and doing over my time as the executive director. Some of those things may not be able to be delegated, and I would have to go through my list of responsibilities to be able to identify.
I think we should know that as soon as possible.
Ask a question of.
I can try.
Yeah.
That has a point. Commissioner.
Sure.
Chair Harris.
Charmaine, with regard to appointing authority, will anybody else be able to appoint staff until we have a new executive director? Specifically, I'm thinking of the investigators. Does the chief chief investigator have the authority to hire investigators without an executive director in place?
No, she's actually going to be going through the appointing authority training in December. That was the soonest that we can get her in there. And once she goes through that training, it's like I don't know if it's, I don't remember if it's an all-day training. But once she goes through that training, she'll be able to hire, recruit and hire the investigators as an appointing authority.
Thank you. That was my question.
Okay, we have Commissioner Aziz, please.
First, thank you, Charmaine, for everything you've done. You are appreciated. In the interim bylaws, it doesn't state what can be done or who can take the place of an executive director. What if, like, I die? What does one do, right? If I'm an executive director. So is in those bylaws, does it go to you as our president of the commission, or, I mean, how does this work?
I am not staff.
I don't want to die.
Are you talking about you as a commissioner or you?
No,
as the executive
like, what if I don't want to say Charmaine,
I get
love her. But I'm just saying, if I'm the executive director and I just die,
Okay.
does this entire commission fall to pieces?
No, it does not.
Right.
First of all, the chair signs everything on behalf of the commission. And a lot of the, like, let's say the findings letters that we send to complainants, that is written up by staff after the meetings. I have signed it. They have signed it for me digitally after I have approved them. So we still operate. It may be a little bit of a slower pace. We were just discussing continuing case review, and we discussed that with Ms. Golub, and we were going to discuss that as in our cabinet update, and also in how we're going to move forward in the next few months. So we are going to continue. The staff is very good at what they do. So they will continue with their positions. They will come to me or the cabinet if they have questions, whether it be social media posts or questions about the agenda. We have a very open line of communication. I am still a volunteer. I am not staff. I'm not part of the OCPP, the office of, so I don't work for the city as opposed to our staff works for the city. So, however, there are certain things that I can do.
Like, can you get a contractor and approve a contract?
No.
So the contracts, that's part of the ED's role as the administrative director of the department. Contracts, being able to create those contracts, draft, like we use the sole source vendor, trying to get the outside consultant. Those types of contracts go through me as the interim ED. And it will also be able to work with purchasing and contracting. The appointing authority position has a lot of responsibilities, signing off and creating documents for the city. I would have to go over and look at what exactly I do to be able to let the commission know exactly what it is. So I don't want to just, it is a lot. And this is for the chair also. The chair does sign off on the finding letters. Those are letters that come from the commission based on the findings that were made in our closed session. So that's one of the things that the chair signs off on. Other letters, that's something that is internal. It's an internal operation that, sometimes I would sign off on it. Sometimes I would initial certain things. There are performance evals that are done sometimes, as far as evaluating staff. I just completed one for one of our staff hires. So performance eval. So there's like internal operations that we do that is needed. So please give me more time. I'll try to let y'all know as soon as possible some of those responsibilities so we can be able to move forward.
And so, Commissioner, just keep this in mind. Miss Mosley, Charmaine is a city employee. So she's the administrator. So the commission, in terms of what you all do as a commission, the chair, a lot of that can go through the chair. Just about all of it can go through the chair in terms of what you decide as a commission. But what we're talking about in terms of Charmaine's position, she's a city employee. She is the executive officer for the commission. So her responsibility is totally different. As a city employee, she is the administrator. She has to prepare the budget. She has to run the office in essence. We don't have anybody now who's going to do that at her level until that takes place. And the city's going to have to help figure that out.
Also, the expediency of the hiring of this person is important, mainly because there's typically a second in command, is the deputy executive director. And we do not have that position filled either. And so that is why, as we meet with city council members, we're asking for the expediency to take place as much as possible, legally possible. Because those two positions ultimately are those that are going to have to be filled. To answer your question, if there was a deputy now, that person could take on those responsibilities. So we're double vacant in those positions. And the commission, the executive director also has the responsibility to hire individuals within that office. And that has not happened yet.
Commissioner Molnar.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is, just with respect to contract, there's one that was trying to use an outside consultant to review those 94 cases. What's the status of that? Is that going to be finished before and in place before you leave, Charmaine?
It is near the end of the process. I just received notification from purchasing and contracting, and they are aware that I am leaving. So I think right now they were looking to see if there was an HR contracting form that has been approved a couple of months ago. There was another item as far as insurance, to make sure that he has his insurance. So that's something that they need to follow up on, or maybe staff can follow up on. But then the executed contract, I believe that was in the mail. He's out in Canada. He's not like local or within the States. He's out in Canada. So he's sending that through snail mail because he had issues with technology. So it is nearing the end. Hopefully, I would say within the next 2 weeks, hopefully sooner, he'll be on board.
Thank you. And we have Commissioner Larkin, and then we may need a vote.
Was there a microphone available?
Commissioner Larkin was next.
Thank you.
I'm a little concerned with this, kind of the whole thing with the interim executive director, I'm sorry, with Charmaine leaving. Exactly what you just said. We don't have a leader, and our leader's second is now leaving. And everything that I'm hearing that everybody's saying, that's gonna pretty much put everything in limbo. You know, what are the?
Commissioner Harvey said so she can't leave.
There you go, not a word.
I've been at 8.5 years.
Okay.
Someone else.
I mean, I'm just trying to be logical with it. This sounds like it's totally gonna put us in limbo. We have things that we're trying to do. There's a lot that can go through our chair. There's a lot that can go through our legal. There's a lot that can go through. Staff is amazing. But you guys, I've been a CEO of a company. I can leave the company for a little while. My second in command will take care of it. But if he's gone, or she's gone, but if he was a he, if he was gone, I have to be there. There are executive things that go on in the administrative world that like nobody else ever plays, particularly at that level. You know, and it's stuff that we don't talk about. It's stuff we as a committee have no business knowing about. Okay, I mean, the things, how do you put an office together? What's going in on that? That has nothing to do with our purview or anything, but it's that type of thing that is part of her job. That and us and all of the other stuff are going to be at limbo. I don't know how to go about saying to city council or whoever it is, you guys, you got to do something. Okay, we need to still maintain that level of leadership so that we can progressively move forward. Okay, because to put us in limbo for 6 months minimum, come on, you guys, this is not working right.
So commissioners, look, you know what? You're right. You are going to be in limbo for a minute. But you know, here's the thing, and I'm just being honest with you. I'm just being honest with you as a city attorney, as a city employee for a long time. It takes a long time to get through these processes, particularly when you have the public input. So this is not to disrespect the public, but when we have the public participation, it's going to take a minute to get the executive director, because you want to have the feedback of the public in terms of what the process should be, et cetera, and it takes a while to get through the search firm. So we're going to be in limbo for a minute, but we're not hopeless. Okay, the staff, yeah, it's going to put more pressure on everybody here, including myself. And I have offered up myself as a resource to the extent I can to help out the staff, to take the load off, et cetera. I know the city. I don't know the city of San Diego as well as some of you do, but I know cities because I've been working there so long. So it's going to take us a minute. It's going to be, yes, we're going to be in limbo, but you as a commission will still continue to be able to function. The cases will come in. We'll understand the cases. You'll continue to have your agendas. The staff understands the agenda process. You'll continue to have your meetings. Some of the things that will be held up, and the city's gonna have to help, whether it be by offering up another commission lead or by offering somebody from HR or somebody to help in terms of budget. For example, this office has to have a budget. They're gonna have to start working on a budget. Charmaine's not gonna be here to do it. Somebody from the city is gonna have to do it. And, you know, and it will somehow, Commissioner, it'll get done, okay? It'll get done.
We have to wrap it up, but if we take a minute, okay. Commissioner Aziz, Rubio, and Larkin. Can we do a minute, please?
1 minute. We did the deputy director search. We interviewed the deputy director. They went through every single process to get hired. What is stopping us from moving forward? We're already 90% done.
Commissioner Aziz, okay. Commissioner Malmat brought that up, and so I just sent an email tonight before the meeting to the chief, the chief of HR? No, the Sean Elo Rivera's office, Lydia. So, she, and also Marnie's office. And I said, A, where does the list stand? Is it still active? I don't know how long a list stays active with the city, a hiring list. B, can we use that list? So that email has been sent as of tonight.
Then we hired the second under executive director. We already did everything for that. Where are we with those people that were the finalists? What's the last step?
I can find that out. So you mean hiring a deputy director before we hire
I was in
an
there.
executive director?
I was in the
Okay,
interview process.
we will ask tomorrow.
We did it already. I don't.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry, I was supposed to be talking in there just a little bit.
so commissioners, this is, no, Miss Charmaine still on the line. This is something that you can't discuss in open session, but you would have been able to discuss in closed session with Charmaine's input, because I think she understands that process and she could have answered the question you have, but you can't do that in open session.
That's okay. We will follow up with that, okay? Okay, Commissioner Rubio, 1 minute. Are you done? Okay. Commissioner Larkin. Beautiful. Any other questions? Oh, we have public comment. So Ms. Golu.
So the public comment period for this item is now open. If you have already joined the Zoom webinar online or by phone, please raise your hand if you wish to speak per the instructions on the agenda. If you're in person, please come up to the podium when your name is called. If the in-person testimony will conclude before virtual testimony begins, members of the public who wish to provide virtual testimony must enter the virtual queue by raising their hand before the queue closes. The queue will close when the last virtual speaker finishes speaking or 5 minutes after the in-person testimony ends, whichever happens first. So we have one in-person community member, Francine Maxwell, who wants to make a comment. Ms. Maxwell, you will have 1 minute. I think the microphone is right now.
Francine Maxwell, Southeastern San Diego resident. We have within the city structure, which Charmaine is an employee of, we have extra executive directors sitting around. You have a personnel department, you have an HR, you have a mayor staff that is abundant. So please don't think that you are in stymied, that you are in limbo. Someone can get you moved in, the furniture has been ordered, and we have budget people up the wazoo. So please demand, don't ask, demand that you be staffed with someone before Charmaine transitions to Los Angeles. This isn't rocket science. They have you thinking that you are totally independent, which you are to an extent, but you are not totally independent. Her paycheck is the city of San Diego. So the city of San Diego, I'm not saying that they're gonna ride in on a white horse, but that will give you what you need to get things done. There is someone that can help you start to build your budget. That furniture is already on a dolly, I'm sure, somewhere. So I'm just saying, don't wait to demand.
Thank you. We don't have any virtual, we don't have any virtual comments. That concludes public comment on this item.
Okay, what I'd like to do now is call for a vote of approval of the proposal that we presented. It is not a final, but you got an outline and you'll get a written outline once this is done. But I'd like to say that the commission is supportive of the work of the Personnel Committee. Okay, can I get a motion and a second on it?
Commissioner Ashley.
It has to be an action item on the agenda. Outside counsel?
Okay, now we have discussion. Go ahead, Charmaine has a question.
Yeah, I was just asking outside counsel, does this item have to be agendized as a discussion action item on the agenda? Because the way it's agendized on the closed session, it doesn't specifically say that.
It's on closed session.
We moved it in.
Yes, yeah, it's on, yes, right. It was on closed session and let me think just for a second. We took the matter out of closed session and brought it into open session. In closed session, the commission could have voted upon the item, okay? So this is, we didn't know, the public did not know what the nature of this matter was, except the appointment process relative to the executive director. So out of an abundance of caution, commission, at this point in time, I would say you presented the item. Again, we took it out of closed session. All right, so the public does not know the full brunt of what this discussion was going to be. They just found out what it is. So in terms of us taking a vote, it would probably be premature and it would not be properly agendized for that. But that's only, commission, because we took it out of closed session. Okay.
Okay, I will withdraw the motion and it'll be an item on the next session.
It will be an action item for a vote, and so hopefully the public will come out, discuss it with us, and we will vote on it. All right, so that closes that item. Thank you for all your discussion. Next, we have the cabinet update. Do we have any public comment on that, Ms. Golub?
It doesn't look like we have a public comment.
Okay, we're going to be real brief, but we want to update you on everything we've been doing. We have met with the police chief, who is also with the IA captain and the 2 lieutenants. It was a robust discussion. We agreed to disagree on some items, but what we actually had it as way to open communication, because if we can't work with the police department and there's not a respect level there, we don't want to be ineffective. We thought it was a positive meeting, although we have a lot of differences. So we met with Council Member Marnie Von Wilpert, who is the chair of the Public Safety Committee. We talked about the executive director. We talked about working to potentially use paralegals through Mr. Bennett's office to help with case review, which is somewhat in his contract, but it would be a tweaking of the contract. We talked about the 2024 fiscal year budget, possibly adding more investigators. They seemed supportive of that. So we would have to have information to them as of January. They were extremely supportive of our committee and asked us to reach out to them if we needed anything, especially with Charmaine leaving. We met with a community leader to hear feedback from the community, and we plan to meet with more of them. And if anyone wants to meet with the cabinet, please reach out to us. So we're open to meeting with everybody. We want to hear all sides of what the concerns are. We're meeting with the City Council President, Sean L. Rivera, tomorrow to update him on the commission actions and garner his support for getting an executive director in an expeditious, yet legal, yet inclusive manner. Did I get it all right, guys? Okay. The cabinet and Ms. Golub and Ms. Mosley and Ms. Obeid are attending NACO convention next week in Chicago, which is the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. And so we hope to bring more information back to the next meeting in November. I believe it's 28th. Also, we're working with staff to get a permanent day and time and location because we need one. So I know that Ms. Obeid had written an update that I don't know if we're going to have time for, but she polled all the staff. We're going to look at a permanent day, maybe 2 separate days. We hope to have 2 meetings a month maybe meeting on a Tuesday and a meeting on another day, and steady location so that everyone can have it in their calendar and and the public can come and it will be ADA accessible. So that's kind of it. Anything to add, gentlemen? Okay, and it's been a pleasure to work with these two for the most part. I'm kidding. Yes, ma'am.
What chance didn't the police agree with us on, or did we have to agree to disagree? Because I don't like the police.
Well, they may not take all of our policy recommendations. Okay, so it was more like that. It was, I thought, it was a respectful conversation. It was, but we stood up for ourselves. You would have been proud. And thank you. And then our meeting ended up being 2 hours. So I thought that was a positive move. He didn't cut it short. I think he garnered respect for us that we're not going to back down from our positions. This is my opinion, and these two can, I think we've talked about it, but they're welcome to disagree. There's it just in general, I don't know that. I mean, one thing he did say is no one hates a dirty cop more than a cop. So okay, that was anyway, that was that.
It was a very interesting and informative conversation.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We do need to move on. All right.
Can I just ask one quick question? So when you met with them, did you bring up the previous recommendations that the policies have been agreed, but they weren't implemented yet?
We brought up some of that. We agreed to disagree on certain things, but that wasn't the main goal of our meeting. So I don't want to put a lot of, there was a memo that we sent out, remember on that meeting that with that one case that we can't discuss because it's public, that we sent a memo to him. There is a response date within 30 days per the charter and per the measure, he has to respond. He has not yet, but we plan on following up. So it was more of a, not as much policy as get to know us. Yes, Ms. Rubio. The case is confidential because we can't discuss it. It's public. I'm sorry. Thank you. Wow, good listening. Thank you. It was confidential. You're absolutely right. And so I do want to move ahead. Are there any other questions? Feel free to always email. Yes, Commissioner Larkin.
Getting a new sheriff pretty soon, aren't we?
He is, you're right. He's in the drop program, and as of this time, he will be retiring in June 2024. We also plan to meet with the mayor and want a place at the table for picking the new police chief. So that has not happened yet. That is in our plans. She's laughing at me. Okay, anything else? Go.
You said sheriff.
You mean police chief? Yeah. Okay. Email us with any questions. Some of you have, we love it, and we'll answer. And look, we're open books. We'll answer honestly. You may not like it. We're doing the best we can. If you have feedback, send it to us. And that goes for the public too. Our email, it will be up on the website soon, but I'll give it to you after the meeting. So anyway, email us. All right. Now we need to move to the next item. So we have the temporary strategy for upcoming review of cases. We are running out of time, so we have 30 minutes. Do we have any public comment?
So I'm going to read. The public comment period for this item is now open. If you have already joined the Zoom webinar online or by phone, please raise your hand if you wish to speak per the instructions on the agenda. If you're in person, please come up to the podium when your name is called. In-person testimony will conclude before virtual testimony begins. Members of the public who wish to provide virtual testimony must enter the virtual queue by raising their hand before the queue closes. The queue will close when the last virtual speaker finishes speaking or 5 minutes after in-person testimony ends, whichever happens first. Okay, it does not look like we have an in-person comment and we don't have any virtual comments.
Thank you, Ms. Golu. All right, so as we're moving forward, one of the things we're focusing on, we realize that one of the things we're doing is building a foundation for the commission. And as my friend and dear outside counsel, Mr. Bennett, has shared with me, that it could take a few years, because to build the kind of commission we all want, it's not going to be an overnight thing. And that helped me not feel as overwhelmed. So thank you, Mr. Bennett. Having said that, we don't think that we will be completely stymied without an executive director. We will move forward as best we can. Granted, certain things that we can't do, that a city staff can do, are not going to get done if the staff cannot do it. However, they will do certain things. So we feel we will be slowed, but not stymied. So please understand that we're still moving forward. And one of the things that we were looking at is a temporary strategy for upcoming review of cases that we want to discuss with you. We want to throw out some of the ideas we have and then hear from you so we can vote on. And we met with Ms. Golub yesterday as a cabinet, and we talked about certain options, maybe for the next 3 months. That's what we're looking at as we go forward. So one of the options is triaging cases, doing preliminary review and selecting cases that we are going to review depending on the severity of the incident and the situation. We checked with Mr. Bennett and he said within the charter, it is absolutely legal that we don't have to review every category 2 case. While we would love to, because every complainant is important, there comes a time when we may not be able to. Again, these are just ideas. We want to hear from you. We want commissioner involvement in case review as much as you have the ability to, because I know some people still work, go to school, moving on. And then hiring investigative consultants who will solely focus on reviewing cases for the commission. That's in the future because, again, we need a bigger budget and Ms. Golub is working on a hiring process. But outside investigators like Ms. Mosley shared, that's a possibility. And also assigning case reviews to the independent contract investigator. And that would be the cases that some may have to expire if we don't have the commissioners and or staff to help with that process. So I open it up to discussion. Ms. Golub, that's right. I'm
Just wanted to make a correction. Ms. Mosley noted that for Mr. Bennett, it's okay if we don't review every category 1 case, right? Because I think you said every category 2.
You're right. I'm sorry. Yes. The more serious cases, there are certain ones we have to review by law.
But
Yes.
also not every category 1
Which-
case also.
So commissioners, so I spent number one, let me just say this. The ordinance that created you is ambiguous and only the city attorney can make sense of it in total. But when you look at the ordinance, what I have discerned from the ordinance is the mandatory investigation. And but when they say investigation, I assume review also. You have to investigate or review death cases, all police in custody death cases, officer involved shootings, and cases with sustained findings. All right, that's mandatory review. That appears to be really, really clear. And then the ordinance becomes ambiguous, and you just use your own legal interpretation, and you can see what I'm saying. It says, for example, the commission may, but is not required to investigate and evaluate a complaint against a police officer that does not involve an in-custody death, a death resulting from an interaction with a police officer, or a police officer related shooting. Period. That means that everything else appears to be discretionary. Correct? I mean, would you read like that? The commission may, but is not required to evaluate, investigate, or complain against a police officer that does not involve an in-custody death, a death resulting from interaction with a police officer, or a police officer involved or related shooting. Period. That's what it said. So as an attorney, I look at that and say, well, okay, everything else outside of these other categories is discretionary. All right. So it also says the commission may, is discretionary, investigate any allegations of misconduct that become known to the commission during the investigation of a complaint if those allegations involve an incident a use of force incident, dishonesty by a police officer, an incident that has generated substantial public interest, or an incident where data shows a pattern of misconduct by a police officer, or a pattern of inappropriate policies, practices by the department. Again, that's discretionary. That appears to be a discretionary review. And then the next exact subsection says, the commission must receive, register, review, and evaluate all complaints against police officers, except the commission must not review or evaluate a complaint where the complainant has requested the complaint be handled without investigation by the commission, where no specific allegation of police officer misconduct can be identified. It's confusing, or it's ambiguous. And the only thing, on the one hand, it gives you discretion. It says the things that you clearly must review: police officer involved death, okay, officer involved shootings, and complaints that result in sustained fighting. Okay, so if you're going to triage, that's your first level. Okay, that's clear that we have to do that. As far as I can review, everything else is left to your discretion. Even though it says the commission must receive, register, review, and evaluate all complaints against police officers, because that, if that's the case, that you have to review all complaints, there is no discretion. The ordinance clearly allows you to have discretion in terms of your level of review. So I think that you have the ability to triage, to decide, okay, these are the cases. You don't have any ability to triage whether or not you're going to review officer involved shootings, death cases, and in cases that result in sustained fighting. Okay, period. That should be your first level. Everything else is very, very confusing. And the only way I went through the charter, I went through the ordinance, and it conflicts with one another. Okay. So, so if you ask me, do you have an ability to triage? If you choose to. Now, here's the thing. If you say we're going to review every complaint that comes across the commission's desk, you can do that if you have the capacity to do it. And the other thing I'd recommend, commission, is this. Look, if you do come up with a triage system where you say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take this, we're going to take this, we're going to take this. We're not going to do these other cases. These are courtesy violations. We don't have, we have to throw those out. This is a search case. We have to throw this out. This is something else. We have to throw this out. It doesn't meet our criteria. Then the thing that irritates and it irks police officers, and I understand and I agree with it, is they wait until you decide before they issue a final determination, up to the year. So they'll sit down. IA will sit on a case, and here's what's not fair to police officers and not fair to the public, is for the commission to get a case and have, so for example, the case is going to expire in December. We get the case in June, but because we're backlogged or because we can't get to it, we wait 6 months to get to that case all the way up until the time it's going to expire. That police officer sitting out there with this thing hung over his head, the department has it hung over his head, nobody can move forward. And this is where you get a bunch of pushback by the union. And it's understandable. If we can't get to the cases, we need to say, if you're going to do a triage and you say, okay, these are categories of cases we're not going to review, though the department needs to be notified immediately. Look, we're not going to be able to look at this case. Here, do whatever you're going to do. Issue your determination and notify the officer so this thing is not hung over the head. And so that the person who complained is also not sitting there waiting for 6 months for us to get to a case that we're not going to ultimately get to. Okay, hope that makes sense.
Okay, we have Commissioner Griffin Jones first and then Commissioner Aziz.
So I definitely want to, I'm in strong support of us reviewing all cases that we get in. And I want us to be using, because I think Charmaine can let me know if I'm not getting it correct. I think we got a few $1 million in the bank. So millions, I think. I don't know what our budget is big, but I hope, but I lift that up because the community members who supported me and who I'm accountable for in my position, and the voters who voted for us, they voted for us in a time where officers who were killing people before they had killed folk, there was so many times they had bullied and harmed community members. So we risked not catching a police officer who is going to kill a community member. So just wanted to express whatever we need to do to be able to, take care of our backlog and, use our resources to even, for Mr. Dwayne, for outside counsel Dwayne's team, because I do appreciate how he helped with counsel on cases we had. We absolutely have to do it because, I can't, it wouldn't be fair for me to hold my head up in my community or to be showing up for myself with us not taking care of all the cases that we see.
Thank you. And just to respond to that, we are working really hard to get extra staff to help with that. Right now, we're talking for the next 3 months or so, where Ms. Golu has agreed to be the point person to maybe even look at cases and say, okay, well, this one is not that courtesy is not important, but it's not as high level as that. Do we put this aside and add it to the trends? So go ahead.
The thing about courtesy is that, so as someone from San Diego, many people in my family, we don't go to Mission Beach anymore because every Sunday police officers would set up a checkpoint. And so they would turn away cars with too many Black people in it. And if they didn't turn away your car, they would growl at you as a little kid in the back seat or whatever like that. So it's too late for us to issue, those complaints, but those things were courtesy. And when we tell people that, oh no, you're tripping, that officer wasn't mean to you, officers are super mean. And I do think, and I hope too, Investigator Gulab, that you aren't.
She's not. This is a discussion item. And
That's to remember that we have, the money we do have available, we should exhaust.
and we
So,
are
yeah.
working, but we have to follow the process to hire.
Oh, totally,
Okay.
but
And Charmaine said the small level complaints turn into larger serious. Yes, Ms. Gold.
Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add a few comments so that you can, for your consideration as you're debating on this agenda item. So just to be clear, my understanding is the commission is still trying to figure out how to approach case review in the long run, right? Right. Right. So this is, for some clarity, short term, maybe within the next 3 months, right? So it is possible that one of the options would be let the investigators who will be hired review some of the cases, right? What we need time to get to the point, right? And the reality is that while I'm working on the hiring, the cases will keep coming in, and they are coming in. So right now, I think the cases that expired, they added to that backlog. So we already have some cases that added to the backlog, right? We have about 20 cases that are active. Sometimes IA can add send cases slower. Sometimes they can send maybe a bunch of them at once. So we can gauge, how many cases will be coming in. So while I'm working on the hiring of the investigators, I think it's crucial that the cases are being reviewed. And if the commissioners are not reviewing cases, then there will be nobody who can review the cases, right? So these are some of the things that I'm putting out for your consideration.
We have Commissioner Aziz, please.
Quick questions. One, for actuals versus projected in the budget, we don't have any money to sole source and get investigators to perform immediately while you're hiring investigators. I think that was one of the questions. Number two, we're saying that there's no precedent legally or statutes or cases that will state that if an ordinance contradicts itself and we choose the one that fits us, that someone cannot then go and read the one that didn't and that said we have to review all cases and sue the city. So I'm just interested on how that would work. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
So Commissioner, that's a great question. You know what happens when you have conflicting ordinances and ambiguous, or people demur to them. And what a demur is to say, so what? You have a law that is confusing, it's ambiguous. I don't have to follow it. So what? It means no law. the city's ordinance and the city attorney would have to interpret why those terms are there. We were not allowed in to meet and confer when the ordinance was being drafted. And so I can't explain it. And I studied it hard. I've gone through the charter, I've gone through the ordinance, and it just has conflicting language there. So I'm not saying that I would ever advise you to take any action that contradicts the ordinance. It's just difficult to ascertain what it says in terms of what your level of review is. But here's the thing, and we went to the Public Safety Committee of the City Council and discussed this. That Measure B places upon you a tremendous amount of responsibility that the former CRB, the former commission did not have, because you will have eventually investigatory authority. And I believe that the drafters of the ordinance recognize this, that you all have a lot more to do and a lot more accountability in the former commission. You will not have the capacity as they did to do some of the things out there. So I think that's why you have so much discretion. That's why there's discretionary case review in certain points and in certain aspects. So, you know, again, the question here is what you do in the interim. I mean, allowing, just like I say, it is, Commissioner, it's up to you all, but it is a disservice to hold on to a stack of cases and wait until the last minute to get to them. And while everybody, the public, the people who have filed the complaint, they don't know what the status of their complaint is. The officers don't know what the status of their complaint is. That if there is a sustained finding or disciplinary action, or if there's something that needs to take place, it's not going to be done for the 6 months that we sit on the case. So there are a bunch of considerations. And the other thing, Commissioner, I can just say this one thing. I think that in your discussion, you should decide, because when you look at the ordinance, there is a great emphasis placed upon openness, accountability, and transparency. Okay. Here's what you all need, and you all can ascertain. You need to decide where the greater benefit and where the greater amount of your resources are used. Are those resources, and is that benefit in looking at every case that comes in? Okay, every case, or is it getting out in front of the public and talking about what you have ascertained from these cases and putting it in front of the public? So, for example, if there are courtesy issues, or if there are things at Mission Beach, and we won't, you may have that discussion in closed session, but that doesn't include the public. Maybe the greater good is to find out, oh, we had that issue in Mission Beach. Now let's go and have a hearing, public hearing, where you all can invite members of the public to hear from the public, hear from the department, as to the issue, so that you can start making policy recommendations and changes that are in public. See, so you all have to juxtapose. You know, you can look at. I mean, you have to measure where your benefit is or what you think you need to do. I think for sure there's case reviews you need to do. You need to find out pattern and problems that are issues, but the ordinance has a great emphasis on you all ascertaining and discussing procedure, policies, and you are the Commission on Police Practices. So the practices of the department are relevant and germane, and that's what involves the public. So as much as you can stay in front of the public, the better.
Thank you, Commissioner Malman, and then Commissioner Malman. She has mic, please. Maybe it's there.
This one working? Okay. So I have a question, like, what's the scope of the problem? Because I thought we already made a decision as a commission to not let anything expire. So unless I misinterpreted what you said, Ms. Golub, is that some have expired since we made that decision? Oh, okay, good. I misunderstood that. Okay. And then, so then my question is, right now we're keeping up, right? So are we in danger of not keeping up anymore based on what we've already started doing? And when is that going to happen, and how big is it, et cetera?
That's a great question. So right now, the cases that we have distributed among the groups that volunteer to review cases, these cases expire this year. So we will review them on November 28th. Past this, there is no vote in the commission on how you want to approach the rest of the cases. And we have cases that expire as soon as January 2nd, January 10th, January 31st, and then 4 cases in February. So that's the issue, right? How you want to approach those cases and the cases that expire maybe in March, until we hire investigators or until we hire paralegals, which have to go through meet and confer. So that's the question on the table, because if nobody's reviewing these cases, they just going to keep expiring.
Commissioner Byer and then Rubio.
Yo. Two things. First, we had the volunteer committee review 2 cases. I think we're ready to do more. And I've got to say Commissioner Helper did a great job leading us. Commissioner Benitez, Commissioner Augendar. We're ready to do more. Give us more cases, please. Second thing is I'm scheduling a meeting with my councilman. I represent District 2 for next week. So I need people to tell me what issues to tell them we need help. What do I tell them? Because my council person is always like, what do you guys need? What can we do to help? So I would appreciate ideas on what to tell my council person we need. abuyer@sandiego.gov. Right.
If you send him emails, just send it to him directly so we don't break the Brown Act. So just if you have any, what you think is needed, and I was gonna say, as a cabinet, right, as a cabinet, we can send it because that's only 4. But if you send it to Commissioner Byer, please just send it individually so we do not have an issue with the Brown Act. But thank you, that's wonderful. And it's really good to know that you're ready for more cases. Part of the concern was that some commissioners may not have time, even though we know that they took it on. No, we want to respect people's times as well. Commissioner Harvey, did you have something? And we're going to work on that. Okay, great. Great. All right, so who's back there? Oh, Commissioner Diaz. Okay, great. So if that's the direction that the commission wants to take, Ms. Golub has agreed to be the point person to help divvy the cases, divide the cases, or pass them along. And if you're ready to do more, okay, we need a motion then. Let's say for the next 3 months, because we want to reassess. We know that we have a long way to go, and hopefully we'll have some backup by then with either paralegals, outside investigator, things like that. So if someone wants to make a motion on how to approach the next 3 months with cases, we would be open to that. So we would take it to the end of February because of the holidays. That kind of puts a little bit of a stymie in that. So just 1 second. As I said, Ms. Golub has agreed to be the point person. She can't review all the cases. She doesn't have to.
Did we lose the audio? Looks like we lost it.
Logged in half of the cases.
No, the ones that we voted on at the very beginning, 92 cases expired per POBAR. So by law, we can't review them. But we, remember, that's the outside investigator was gonna look at the trends. That was, I know, that was before we took part. I'm sorry, I know. But we can't review them. Legally, there's a year expiration. POBAR, it's the police officers, Bill of Rights. Public side, so we cannot legally. However, we are trying to keep up to not let more expire. And our concern was that only 7 commissioners had signed up, so maybe the others didn't have time, whatever. So now that we have interest, I think this is going to be much easier going forward. So
Putting an administrative emphasis on having commissioners sign up for that. That's my only thing then.
absolutely. Then can we have any commissioner who's interested in reviewing a case, email Ms. Golub? And that way she will help design the teams. She may help lead one. Mr. Bennett may help lead one. We have both Mr. Second Vice Chair Case. We have Commissioner Hilbert who can guide and teach. And we have commissioners now who have reviewed cases, may not need the guidance. So do we want to make a motion on how we want to move forward in the next 3 months, and we will reevaluate at the end of February? Absolutely.
So I want us all to remember that outside counsel, Dwayne, outside counsel Bennett is also a resource.
Absolutely.
With this capacity. So, because in the before times, sorry. Hello? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. So like in the before us times, there was like the other commission, it was that pressure for everyone to be reviewing cases, and if you weren't retired and stuff, or if you had other outside obligations, you were lightweight shamed and stuff for not being able to do that. We're not creating that here.
And that's what we were trying to avoid,
Yeah,
because
so-
you're giving of your time and we respect you as a volunteer.
And we have the resources of, a world-renowned lawyer around Holding Police Academy. World of the world, outside counsel. So I would want to include something like that in the motion as well.
Okay, thank you. And now we have Ms. Golub, because we are running out of time and we have to get out of this library soon. So Ms. Golub.
Just a quick comment. So, again, I think there is more commissioners than there is Mr. Bennett, so just wanted to put it out there. But also, wanted to flag that I would encourage commissioners to use this temporary, right, a motion that you're voting on as also a training opportunity for yourselves, right? If you don't review cases, there is no way for you to get your hands dirty and to understand what's this all about. So think of it also maybe as a training opportunity on a temporary basis.
All right, does anyone want to make a motion on how to move forward? Commissioner Malmet.
I move for the next 3 months that we continue with the process that we've started, where commissioners volunteer to review cases as they are able, that Mr. Bennett and Ms. Golub support that, as well as Second Vice Chair Case and Commissioner Hilbert, so that we can continue reviewing all cases.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Oh. Miss Commissioner Aziz, all cases, got it. Okay, can I just add an amendment and maybe say, instead of just Commissioner Hilbert and Second Vice Chair, any who have reviewed cases and feel ready to take it on or help train other commissioners so we can make it a wider net? May I make that amendment? Does the commission agree? Okay. All right. Any more discussion? 3 minutes. Yes. Okay. Any more discussion? Thank you for sharing. Any more discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Raise. I'm sorry. What?
Sorry. Ms. Mosley had a question. How many commissioners want to review cases?
Yeah. Okay, just all those in favor, raise your hands up high, please. And, okay, any opposed? Okay, no opposed. Any abstentions? All right, passed unanimously. Thank you. We are going to have to wrap this up and table all the other agenda items. So we are wrapping this up at 7:31. Thank you all for your time.
It's my last meeting.
Did you want to say something to me?
I had some remarks. Okay, I'll just add it to the meeting minutes. It's
Are
my
you
last
sure?
meeting.
Do you want me to say something to them or?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
I am Charmaine Mosley, Interim Executive Director of the Commission on Police Practices. Since the November 7th regular business meeting of the Commission on Police Practices adjourned before the OCPP staff portion of the agenda, I did not have an opportunity to provide my last remarks and message. So I have resorted to recording and submitting my remarks here. November 24th will be my last day as the Commission's Interim Executive Director and Administrative Director of OCPP. So yesterday's meeting will likely be my last CPP regular meeting as your Interim Executive Director. I have proudly accepted the position of Executive Director of LA County's Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission. As a public servant for the City of San Diego for over 8 years, first leading the CRB, then the interim commission, and now this commission, I leave here knowing that in my time with the city, we have accomplished numerous changes in SDPD policies, procedures, and practices, and internal operations. It has been a pleasure working with the department, city officials, community members, and most importantly, all of you. I have learned so much through my work with several administrations, as well as community members and stakeholders. I will take my experiences with me to continue promoting transparency and accountability of law enforcement. I couldn't do this difficult work alone. Without us all working together to affect change, change doesn't happen. So we must continue to work together and respect each other as we're doing this work. A well-deserved special thanks to our commissioners, interim and new, commission leadership, Chair Tran, First Vice Chair Brown, Second Vice Chair Case, our outside counsel, Dwayne Bennett. I will miss those early morning, late night, and weekend messages. No, I will not. Just kidding. Also, I appreciate the dedication that numerous stakeholders and community partners have provided over the years by not giving up, because change is not happening fast enough. Civilian oversight of law enforcement is a work in progress. This commission has a sturdy foundation to keep moving forward to put in place a successful and efficient community-led oversight model. Most of your training has been completed. So everything else is building on what you have learned and putting it into practice. Continue looking at SDPD's policies and procedures, learning them. Continue participating in NACO's oversight webinars. You will become an expert in this field, saving the best for last. I want to thank my awesome staff for all their hard work and support, and making sure that through the administrative support of the commission, we all shine. They make it look so easy when we have so many moving pieces. I appreciate and will miss you all. It has been a pleasure and a privilege working with all of you. And then also, let me not forget our interns. We have 4 interns. They were amazing also. So I want to thank our interns for all their hard work, especially participating in our meetings and doing research. They are actually the glue that hold everybody together. So thank you. Again, it has been my pleasure and privilege working with all of you, and also working as a public servant for the city of San Diego. Thank you.